Hello and welcome to the Pandemic People podcast. I'm your host, David Roman, and this is episode 3. Today, we're going to leave North America and head all the way down to South America to a country named Peru. We're going to check in with a couple of folks who are doing an amazing food drive down there in a little town called Huanchaco. I'm really excited for you to hear this interview, and we're going to give you some information so that you can donate to their cause. Before we get to that, I just want to acknowledge a couple of media outlets who have been promoting the podcast, namely CBC Radio and Magic 103.5 down in Weyburn. Thank you so much for interviewing me and bringing some traffic my way. I really appreciate all of the positive energy. Thank you. Keep it coming. It really inspires me to just keep this podcast going and to reach out to new people and to see what the world's up to. So thank you so much. We wouldn't have a show without people like yourselves. All right, today we're going to talk about food. One of the big changes to our daily lives during the pandemic has been the availability of goods. I'm sure most of you have heard about people hoarding toilet paper, or maybe you've tried to buy yeast and just can't find it. Right now, our food distribution system is slightly overwhelmed. It really wasn't designed for people to shop in such large quantities. As well, we've had some issues with plants closing down due to COVID-19 outbreaks. Not to mention how much we've had to change our processes to factor in social distancing and extra cleanliness measures. Food distribution can become a really precarious thing during a pandemic. But one thing to consider is it will affect us all just a little bit differently. Depending on where you live, how much money you make, all these things can come into play when you're looking for food. One thing that's for sure is in Canada, we're very used to a certain standard of living when it comes to grocery shopping. Usually we can go to the store and find foods from all areas of the world available at most times of the year. Sure, sometimes the fruit is really not in season and doesn't taste as well as it normally would, but the fact that a banana is available basically every day of the year in Canada is pretty remarkable when you think about how our food distribution system has evolved over the years. The fact of the matter is, Canada still has food on its shelves. The main challenge right now is money. Lots of people are out of work, and the CERB is a pretty good initiative, but ultimately lots of people fall through those cracks as well. And of course, CERB stands for the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. But I really wanted to know how this affects other countries and what kind of things that they're doing to keep their people fed. For that reason, I'm incredibly grateful to have our next guests on the show. They're going to tell us a little bit about their experience in Peru and what they're doing to combat hunger down there during the pandemic. Let's not wait any longer. Grab your masks and your virtual luggage and let's head on down to Peru. Hi, welcome back. I'm sitting here with a couple of folks down in Peru, of all places. My family's from Chile, so this is kind of close to my heart a little bit. Although we're supposed to be natural enemies with Peru, so I don't know. I don't know what my family's going to think of me after this. But anyways, so we have a couple of people down there. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and you just tell me a little bit about what you're doing and what's going on down there.
Awesome. I'm Stephanie Rieux. I'm Jami Haugen.
Hi.
We have moved here in Peru at the beginning of March, thinking we were going to come down and surf and have fun and really work on our business and just do the digital nomad thing.
Oh, cool.
And then little did we know,
coronavirus snuck up on us and
right.
like a thief in the night. And then literally out of nowhere, Peru shut down the borders.
Wow.
And it was no flights in, no flights out, under martial law, really strict rules. So we were like, okay, this is where we are now.
Yeah. And
Wow.
As much as we wanted to, there were at some point flights being able to leave, but it was
Right.
such a system because any domestic travel had to be really coordinated and organized so that we could fly out of Lima, because Huanchaco is 10 hours north of Lima. So we were just in a small town and it was okay for certain people to leave. They had organized flights from Canada to leave, but because we decided to bring our dogs, the flights weren't accepting dogs. So we got trapped here with our dogs.
That's the factor that kept you there then is a dog?
There's a dog.
No, but I mean
that was the let's call it the on paper. Yes, we couldn't go back because of the dogs, but really genuinely speaking, we did want to stay here. We weren't looking to rush back home or anything. I have been to Huanchaco, it's my 4th time, and I just feel the people here. I connect with the people here. I trust the people here.
Right.
It's such a good community that there wasn't a doubt in my mind that it wasn't going to be safe down here while this was happening.
No, I'm just really astonished that that's the reason why they wouldn't let you go back. I hadn't heard of that, so that's a whole new thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like no pets, no musical instruments, just,
Wow.
right. If you're trying to get people out really fast, I guess, it's just like, let's get the line, moving into the plane kind of mentality. But yeah, Steph was pretty like, resolved in her want to stay in Peru. And I felt my intuition. I was like, yeah, I feel like I should be here during Corona, during the whole epidemic, but it was hard and it was scary and I cried, a little bit, because it's just, people, because you think of all of the scenarios, right?
Some people are thinking it's like
going to go on,
the end of the world.
Yeah, nobody really knew what was happening when it started. I mean, to a point we did, but I think everybody felt this sense of dread as things shut down and the alarm bells sounded on your text messages and all those things. It was very surreal.
Yeah. And people like from back home, there's this association with South America that it's more dangerous and all these things. So it was like luckily my family and my friends know me very well, so they weren't pressuring me into coming back. But we did have experienced some people being like, "Come back, like
get out of there." And I do.
There's the dog. He wants on the show.
Yeah. And I do have asthma. So, that was also like, okay, I'm in Peru with the health system like this, but, they did take precautions really soon. So that gave me a lot of hope too, that they were like taking this serious and putting in these strict rules for us, for the people, to make sure that, it doesn't get out of control. So.
Right. I'm definitely going to come back to that medical side of Peru because I have been looking it up a little bit. So I guess you mentioned that you were down there surfing and you were were you planning to stay there a long time? And what kind of job do you do that allows you to work from there, I guess?
I'll talk about the fun and you can talk about the business side. How about that? So, I quit my career 3 years ago to be able to travel the world and work online. So I've been traveling for quite some time, and Huanchaco is like this part of my heart belongs here. And Jami and I were just in Mexico before we came here. And so we really wanted to just come here and enjoy ourselves, surf, but also, when you're traveling, you're also disconnected from a lot of people. So you tend to have a lot more time for yourself.
Right.
So basically our focus was surfing and enjoying, the community, but also just focusing on our work and our business.
Right. So sorry. And what was that business again? Sorry. What? I guess you said Jamie's going to talk about that side of it.
Yeah. So we met as digital matchmakers, actually.
Oh, wow.
And then through that experience, we both got the life coaching buzz.
Okay.
So we have, and for the last year, we've been really working on our coaching businesses, both solo and together, with our company Ferreira.
Okay.
So we just really want to help people. And it's so funny. It's a weird coincidence that this is all happening because we have been, advocates for emotional awareness and tapping into, your old traumas and things that you've experienced and really utilize that as stepping grounds into seeing the world from a very different perspective and quite a beautiful perspective. Right. And so one of our things is really figuring out who you are internally and by yourself. So quarantine it's kind of a weird coincidence that it's happening.
Yeah, that sounds very, very much the same as what you're describing, right? Being by yourself and reflecting and all these things. I guess that's really interesting that you have an online business. I'm finding that right now with the way things are going, obviously everybody's stuck inside. Those are the businesses that seem to be growing and still doing things, right? So how has that been going for you during the pandemic?
Again, it's almost not guilt driven, but we feel so grateful and so happy that we're not suffering from that. And we feel people are actually able to hear us now in the sense of what we are actually trying to do, because they are experiencing the fears, they are experiencing the doubts, they are experiencing the confusions of reality. And so it's our area of expertise.
Yeah. No, you'd be really, really in high demand right now. I mean, and like I say, people who are just sitting at home and just desperately need some of that support right now. There's a lot of those people for sure. I've talked to many of them already. So, cool. So we're in Peru. We're in Huanchaco. Whereabouts is that in Peru?
Yeah, so 10 hours north of Lima, basically. It's on the coast. Super small town, just quaint, beautiful. She didn't get to experience it as much as I have because we got here and we just basically went into straight quarantine. So she didn't get the full experience yet, but
yeah,
it'll come back.
Why Huanchaco? Why was that the choice?
Because I've been here. This is my 4th time coming.
And you know the place.
And I don't know what it is about this place. And I've traveled quite a bit. It has stolen my heart.
Awesome.
Like, it is a magical little place. Time seems to stop. Like, the people, the combination between, expats and locals, it's just a really cool little bond, like very special.
Oh, so there are other people there, like you're saying, from other places as well too, hey?
Yeah, lots of them actually.
Yeah.
And how, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, because Steph's lived here for, off and on. So coming in, we already had community, which was really nice. So, know the locals, as well as the expats. And it's just been it was such a warm welcome. So definitely another reason why it was easy to be like, okay, it's okay. Because we, are familiar with the community and know that the community's roots are so strong. And they're really here to help each other. So we knew that, if worst came to come to worst, everybody would come together and make sure that, everybody's taken care of. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know a whole lot about the geography of Peru, but I guess in a small town like that, you're saying there's a lot of expats there as well. How did you find, obviously, Stephanie, you've been there previous times, so you've already developed that rapport, but how is the community at embracing people coming in like that from other places? I only ask this because I'm Chilean, and I know down there, they're cool and accepting of people, but there's always this I don't know about these gringos, as everybody calls them, right? So I'm just curious, how did you build that trust in the community?
Well, couple things. I would say 50% are super on board, and then there's 50% that are wishy-washy and oh, gringos. We did at one point, we can go into this, get blamed for bringing the corona into Huanchaco. So that was also part of the experience that we can go into. But they really, truly rely on tourism here.
Right.
It's a big little tourist area because the waves are so magical. And so people do definitely come here to experience the waves. And so most of the community is built on tourism.
Oh, okay. Really interesting. So they're used to having people from the outside doing things around, right? So, so that kind of brings me to my next thing then. Obviously, you're there doing something really special and really different. And I wanted to talk at length about what you're doing there. I understand, I didn't want to learn too much in advance, but I understand you're doing a food drive. So maybe tell us a little bit about how that came about and what's going on.
Yeah, so we had, it'd probably been a week into quarantine, and Steph and I are just trying to, figure out what is happening in the world, So we got into some a little bit of dark conspiracy theories and just really and really just because we need to be informed, and these kind of came in our laps and trying to figure out, okay, what is happening in the world, and we felt that our energy was getting a little bit kind of down, and which is not typical for us.
Right.
And we're so on the same level all the time, which is funny. But we literally woke up one morning and we're like, okay, we need to shift into love energy and really, really get back to those feelings of love and joy and compassion and doing the things that, we enjoy and everything. And we're out getting, groceries, and we came back in and
I was text. Well, because I'm part of this little surf community, the surfistas, the girls surfer group. And so one of the expats who currently lives here and really helps other communities outside of Huanchaco. So there's little kind of suburban, but it's not suburban. It's just very smaller categories outside of, or districts outside of Huanchaco. And she takes care of this one. And she was like, this corona is literally going to kill people from starvation, not because of actual corona. And I could feel her pain in her call. And it was such a weird moment because we had been experiencing love and joy and all these things inside while being cooped up. And then there's just this big call of feeling oh my God, I gotta be I gotta do this. I gotta help. There's this overpower that just took me over. And I was like, okay, I didn't even take a second to think about it. I just went on Facebook and Instagram and wrote like one little post of like, hey guys, if you guys know me, I'm just going to ask for a huge favor here. I'm asking for donations to be able to feed the locals. Like there's going to be, like people are going to start dying, not because of Corona, but because of experiencing starvation. And what a horrific thing to happen. So as soon as we put that call out, I'm not kidding. It just like blew up. Like it went like within, financials or whatever, but like within 24 hours, I think we had already raised like 10 grand.
Wow. No, that's a significant amount of money, I'm imagining down there.
We're down there. Well, with 10 grand, like we've already been able to feed over 4,000 people.
Holy cow. That's amazing.
Friggin' amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things here, even, food obviously is an issue for some people. But one of the issues people often forget to talk about is it's not just the people being infected by coronavirus, right? It's all these other things that get impacted by that. If a hospital is overrun, somebody has a heart attack and they can't get the right treatment, or like you're saying, that the food distribution system isn't working correctly, then certain people can't eat. And, even here in Canada, we're experiencing shortages. I talked to somebody yesterday in Vancouver and they're like, I haven't been able to get toilet paper in a month. They had to get it shipped from Saskatchewan. Like things like that are happening, right? Or I've been looking for yeast for weeks now and I can't find yeast because everybody's baking again and there's not enough yeast to go around. So this is a real concern globally, and I imagine especially in a community like that. I know a little bit about Latin America, and there is some deep poverty in some areas, right? So, I guess one thing I'm thinking about then is the food down there, and like how do you access food down there typically, and what kind of things are people eating?
Yeah, so for us, to be honest, we have been so fortunate that there's so many local produce, right? So it's like every day we can get fresh vegetables. So it's that in that sense, we've been really blessed. But for the surrounding communities, it's a different reality for them.
Right. Yeah, it's like we're not afraid of a lack of food or running out of fresh, fruits, fresh vegetables, eggs and things like that, because they're very sustainable within themselves. It's just the purchasing of it.
Right.
Most people here, because of the strict laws, literally cannot go to work. And so some, a lot of these smaller communities, you've got one person who is working to sustain the entire family. And therefore, if that one person loses their job, or not loses, but, puts it on pause for a period of time, they don't live, with savings for months to months. They live day to day.
Right.
And so as soon as that is being cut off, it's not the fact that we're not running out of anything. Like there's nothing that we've noticed or felt, a lack of when it comes to actual food. It's just the fact that people don't have the financials to be able to, and like day-to-day financials to be able to afford food. So it was a really big panic really quickly, And a lot of the people that are providing for their families are going to the beach and selling sandwiches, right? So the money that they're making on sandwiches or just reading juice to the people that are on the beach, they take that money and buy food for their family for the next day.
So they're buying food to make food. To make money to buy food. Right. Yes.
Yes. That's where the bottleneck is, right?
Right.
But for I don't know if you want to know the kind of what we've been able to give to the families in terms of food.
Yeah, I mean,
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like we do work with like a local. So we've worked with two. We're basically like kind of like four awesome girls who are like taking care of each kind of little departments, I guess, for this, and two of them own an NGO, two separate NGOs, and so they've already kind of been through these types of crises to some certain extent. So they already had like the demand for certain types of food and the quantities per family per week. So we were able to really like nail down like just like a certain amount with very high in like either proteins and things like that to really be able to like create these big bags for, and some of them like, I mean, they don't need that much food, but we wanted to give them enough for at least like a week for their entire family of like, say like 5 to 8 people, so that it wasn't like constant, and they are very community driven. So at the end of the day, we know that like they share as well. Like no one will actually go, starve, because everyone is quite community driven and we'll support
Awesome.
each other and share in that. So that part's really cool.
No, that's super great. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting that there's a high availability of food there, like you said, and it's really about the purchasing power. That's the issue. So what is the government there doing? Or are you in the know of the things that they're doing to help? I read a little bit about providing some stimulus of some sort, but are people getting some help now that they're not working, and or what's the picture look like there?
Yeah, so it's not what it is perceived. We actually also had to be careful as to not literally, like, it's kind of like an undercover mission in a weird way, but we couldn't get involved with the municipalities too much, because if they found out that these people were getting food, they would have actually cut off their financial support from the government. And it was taking way too long for it to reach them. And some communities still haven't even reached, or the government still hasn't even reached some of the communities to give them financial support.
Right.
So it's just slow.
That's really interesting. Slow. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, here in Canada, I'm sure you've heard, we have the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. But there's nothing contingent there about a food donation, right? They don't tell you can't qualify for it if you go to the food bank, which I don't even know if many of the food banks are operating anymore, to be honest. But yeah, so you think if they discovered that donation, that would go against what they're getting, or would cut them off, hey?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
potentially. And like I said, the girls have on the team have been, they know the community, so it was just like, let's be aware of this. And act accordingly. That being said, we had the local police with us and helping us out.
Oh, awesome!
Do the deliveries, and they were beautiful and very giving of their time and letting us.
It's just like to do it safely, yes. Because I mean, think about the concept of, like, if you're running out of food. I mean, everyone gets hangry, right? Like, if you're starting to feel that feeling of like lack of food, you start kind of losing it. So you're not. So it's more like we were. The worry was that we'd show up with a bunch of food and we'd just get like swarmed and everyone would steal it and it would go crazy, right? So really we got involved with the local police to be able to do these deliveries so that it was done in a really safe fashion, and that if any chaos were to happen, I mean, we were safe, and I support it by that way. So that was really, really good.
So is there a way to kind of figure out who's going to get it, or is it just kind of whoever can show up and take it, or how are you figuring that out? I'm a social worker, so I know that's always the most complicated scenario, right? So
luckily we are working with those lovely gals who have the NGOs, and we tend to have one lead communicator from each little area, like little district, let's call it. And so they have gone around safely, of course, because of the quarantine rules, and just like asked, the families who is really suffering, writing down their names, literally like keeping track of absolutely every family that we are donating to, so that when we show up to the community, we know which house receives a bag.
Right.
But the thing is that we showed up to so many, and by the time they received the names, by the time they ran around, by the time we purchased the food, and this happened really fast, mind you. It didn't happen like over 2 weeks. It happened over like 3 days. But even just that amount of time, when we showed up, say like one community needed 90 bags. So we brought 90 bags. Well, there was probably an additional 10 to 20 families who by then were experiencing a lack. Right. And so I did one of the deliveries, and holy, like, there's a video that I posted after my experience, and my heart completely just broke. Like, you go to these communities and like, most of these houses are already like, people are sleeping on the ground, and like they're already a huge lack, but like, everyone had to stay in their homes, but they opened their doors, and it was like the sadness in their faces of not being able to receive a bag in that moment. But they knew that like they hadn't, it was just such a trip, because you give a bag to one house and then you see the people in their faces like, why don't we get a bag? It was like that, like
totally
heartbreaking experience. And it wasn't just that. I mean, obviously animals, like we have such a huge love for animals, and like, they're not going to be fed. They're not going to receive care. They're not going to get anything. Like, it's a survival thing right now. People just want to be fed themselves. So seeing all of that pain as well was really, really rough.
Well, for sure. Yeah. And it's kind of almost parallel to what's going on in the medical system, right? When they don't have enough ventilators for people and having like to make decisions about, you get this and you don't. And it's like, that's never a good decision, right? It's never something you want to make a decision about. I'd be very interested to see that YouTube video. I'll ask you for that link after the show, and we'll throw it in the notes here too. And speaking of your videos, I do want to ask a little bit about the one video you posted about when they first went into quarantine, and I saw military in the streets, and it seemed, there's a little bit of shock in that video and that kind of thing. What is it like down there in terms of the restrictions that are going on? I can say here, I mean, yeah, we're being told to stay in our homes, and businesses are shutting down, but it's like there's almost like jokes around, like, oh, the police found somebody and they ticketed them, and that's not going to mean anything, so I mean, here it's pretty low stress when it comes to that. So I'm just curious about what it's like down there. I mean, we don't have people with guns walking around on the street, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So, at the beginning it was, it started with, okay, you can only leave the house, to go get groceries. And little by little, they started kind of like taking away more rights because people weren't adhering to the rules.
Right.
And so then there was an 8 p.m. curfew, and then there was, people were still going out and meeting each other in their homes. And then it was the 4 p.m. curfew. And then all of a sudden it was, men are only allowed out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, women only allowed out on Tuesday,
based on
Thursday,
gender.
Saturday, nobody out on Sunday. Last week we were only allowed out on 2 days,
because of Easter, ultimately.
Right.
And it is martial law. So if you are caught outside, the military do have the right to shoot.
No, it's no joke, right?
And not held accountable either. Like, they literally had the right to be able to take extreme measures if they needed to.
Yeah. No, I mentioned you, in a message, or Jami, about, like, it reminded me of what happened in Chile with the dictatorship for different reasons, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, like, you'd have police in the street all the time, and the same kind of thing where they could shoot you on sight without question if they really wanted to.
I think they're like not like real bullets. I don't know if they're like
maybe, hey, right?
I think they're like the rubber ones that like really hurt
and pierce your skin, but you're not gonna die.
At the very least, they're doing it for reasons to protect people instead of
and everything totally, and everything is closed. Like, restaurants aren't open, so literally the only thing that is open are pharmacies and little tiny
bodegas, little grocery stores. Like, not even grocery stores, they're just like corner stores.
Yes, I've seen those. Yeah. Like a tienda or something, is that what they call them?
Yeah, tienda. Yeah, exactly. A tienda, bodega. Yeah, either of the two. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I guess the other thing I was curious about, then you talked earlier about what they're doing medically, and I was reading in the media recently that it looks like Peru upped their testing quite a bit, and their numbers kind of jumped fast because of that. What is it like down there for people accessing testing or even treatment and healthcare when they need it?
Well, I mean, from what we've experienced, because we did experience a little bit of a scare in that, we were being exposed to it at one point, and so none of our team members have experienced any sicknesses or anything like that. But we obviously had to take extreme precautions as to packaging and wear masks and gloves, and because we're handling food to distribute to families who cannot afford any type of medical. So again, we had to be really cautious, but we did experience a big scare. And again, nothing that we was a little bit out of our control. We did invite 2 lovely gals to help us with the packaging, but they didn't know back then that they had roommates who were actually infected with corona.
Oh gosh.
So we did have a huge scare. Mind you, it was not easy for them to get tested, and we had to take extreme measures of hey, go to the cops and be like, look, we're working with, a community to try to feed people, and we have to make sure that we are all safe, that we aren't infected by this corona. Anyway, so long story short, they didn't end up testing positive, but it took them at least 3 days to even get someone to come and do a test at their house. We wanted to get tested just in case, but they wouldn't even entertain it because we didn't have any symptoms. Right. So they really are only, from our perspective and our experience, only testing people who are showing severe signs of
severe signs.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, that's exactly the same thing happening here in Saskatchewan, or at least it was. They're only testing people who have, if you show up at the hospital or if you traveled, I suppose, and some medical professionals. But I actually was experiencing symptoms at one point a few weeks ago now, and I won't know if I ever had COVID because nobody ever tested me, and I called to get tested and they wouldn't do it. So, and our whole family was experiencing different symptoms. So, So even here, actually, surprisingly enough, we're talking about, we don't have enough tests, and we're supposed to have a lot of money and resources here and all these things, and they're not providing tests for everyone. So
we will say that we are extremely, grateful at the severity of how they have regulated the laws and things like that, and taken it extremely serious, because at the end of the day, if there was a huge crisis here, the healthcare system would not be able to handle that type of mass influx.
100%.
They just don't have the same type of healthcare system as Canada does, or the US. It's very limited. So we kept saying, like, we're really happy that they have taken, and we were one of the, probably, don't quote me on this obviously, but we were very closed down. Our borders were closed down very early on, like very early on. And even domestic travel was closed out very early. So we were like, okay, it's scary, but we understand why they have to do this, because if there was a crisis, man, like, not good. Wouldn't be good.
Kind of the sad and almost good thing about some of these countries, like I'm talking about Chile as well, is we're almost used to experiencing martial law and tight restrictions, that it's like when it happens, it's not anything out of the ordinary, right? I think here, we never experienced anything like that. So people were like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? And there's even protests happening. Like there was a protest in Michigan just recently with thousands of people who want them to end the social distancing measures, which is absurd at this point in that country. But it's super interesting. No, I'm really glad to hear a totally different perspective down there, what's happening and how it's impacting people. I think it's really important for my listeners to hear that too.
And
so go ahead.
We make it work. We're not technically, you're not allowed to go for like a leisurely walk or anything like that, but we're like, we'll go to the bodega over there where we conveniently have to go around the block to go by the ocean so we can,
take a little breath of fresh air and then come home.
You got to get creative to still get some stress relief, right? And what about yourselves? I mean, obviously this is a big experience, right? So, and you're in a foreign country, you don't have a lot of family. Well, I'm assuming you have no family there.
My brother is here.
Oh, your brother.
Luckily, which is odd. He moved here at the beginning of the year, and so we're very grateful. We literally live a stone throw away from him, so we feel really good having him around as well.
Well, that's really beneficial. To have somebody you can count on a bit, right? Is there anything that you're finding it yourselves, like you're trying to do to kind of cope? You mentioned the walk already and stuff like that, but things that are kind of working for you to get through this and to keep going?
Yeah. So Steph and I are really spiritual, and she mentioned that at the beginning, and really kind of finding, I don't know if we're taping that or not yet, but as life coaches, really finding like our higher selves, our higher purpose.
Right.
And we, like, when we were living in Mexico, we were having fun and going surfing and going to the beach and stuff, but we had already been spending a lot of time by ourselves and indoors, and so we're used to this kind of concept and from living or working remotely, but it's just really I even took a little a step back from my business I was like, okay, this is when else is this going to really be a reality where we can really step back and really view ourselves and what makes us happy, or what makes us sad, why does that make why are those things holding me down, and how can I learn to, be able to express myself more, or, really, and kind of call it like research and development for us. Because as life coaches, we're social entrepreneurs, really. So it's it's working on ourselves to be able to help other people. And, because we're all pretty much, when it comes down to it, like very similar in our emotions and everything. So, as opposed to having like a cup, like we're not doing research and development on a product, but we're doing it on ourselves. So really, and being able to give ourselves that room, like we like our businesses are like, is flourishing and really expanding that way, as well as like the food drive and really just kind of doing
we're busy.
Things that are
we're
things
busy,
that
good
us.
busy, good busy. Like it's like what we really have, like as much as this is different, we've kind of been practicing this weird quarantine for ourselves in a different way for over a year now. So when this happened, it's like when our freedom was removed, our freedom is from within, is how we see it. So we all have access to this beautiful journey inside of ourselves. And so meditation, staying active, probing the mind, putting certain emotions under the spotlight, doing that inner work, finding your little passions, drawing, painting, like your little passions are what uplifts you. So we're not prevented from doing those things indoors. So if you were to look at our days, you'd be like, wow, these girls do a whole lot. But because we are used to this lifestyle, it's not, if anyone works from home, they have an understanding and it's not as shocking, this type of experience, because you are home a lot. And we do the normal things. We cook, we clean, so we're constantly maintaining some sort of, we're not just like, I barely watch TV. Like that is not even something that really we spend doing at all. Like if we do, it's just informative stuff and things to help us grow and learn. And we're not glued to the media whatsoever. We're like, this is something else, we won't get into that, but like, to us, it's not what it is perceived to be at the same time. So we are taking COVID very seriously in that, like, we are respecting the rules, trusting the rules, listening to what the current reality is out there. But we also know that there is another world, in a sense, of that you can experience while you're within yourself. So.
Yeah, like I really liked what you said earlier, like initially, obviously there's a lot of emotions we go through when things like this start, right? And I think over time you start realizing what your purpose or what you can do within that to just not necessarily even maintain normalcy, but to thrive in that, right? So yeah, you use the skills you had, and now you're applying them in some really unique and beneficial ways for others, right? So that's amazing. No, that's super awesome. That's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, actually, honestly, is I wanted to use my skills to do something, not just to take my mind off of things, but just to connect and build community and educate a little bit, and especially myself. Like you told me a lot of things today that just totally make me think about other things that I need to talk about now with people and that kind of thing. So I super appreciate that.
It's all about, following through on those inspirations and finding new little avenues about yourself that you're like, oh, this creative outlet, and whoa, and yeah, just like,
and really noticing how much we can still come together, even though we feel we are worlds apart. The connection has actually increased within our, our social circles and things like that, has actually been, I've never felt closer just to a lot of people, because now we're not so focused on the outside world in a way, and we can actually communicate and we can actually interact with each other. Yes, it's online and it's a different setting, but we were invited to to an online dinner where she's going to interview us while we eat dinner. And it's just it's
cool.
different, but it's even more it's just more powerful and present. You have to have a conversation. If you're sitting across from someone, if you're on your phone and you're doing a Zoom video, there's no interaction. So you're fully present with these people, which I think is actually another big bonus.
Yeah, no, there definitely is this heightened state of giving going on right now, and I'm noticing that in all areas, even things that typically are seen as kind of disposable. Like I think about entertainment. I just did segments on that, and there's people within those industries even who are giving back and trying to find ways to entertain people while this is going on. I think about children especially, right? Like they don't really need to take on all the realities right now. They need to be giving coping mechanisms in some ways, right? Healthy ones. And it's really cool to just watch the outpouring of giving that's going on around the world right now.
And I love that. Yeah. It's the free, it's just coming from love and it's not attached to money or
attached to an agenda,
and it's just this free, beautiful outgiving of love and shared talents. And I think really learning how to use technology in a good way.
Yes.
When you're it's, we're not being distracted by it. We're I guess we are, because it's in some cases, but it is bringing people together on a deeper level. My friend, obviously Passover last week, and she's got a big Jewish family, and they had their Seder meal online, and she was just she's 40 and she was like, this was the best meal that we've ever had together. And like, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
And it's just like little moments that we're all being able to truly connect with ourselves and with others. It's really, and really trying to focus on that, and I think is, when we do get lonely and stuff, it's like, okay, when you feel lonely, okay, what's missing? Is it that connection? Is it, connection with your family? Is it connection with myself? Like, and really kind of turn it around and look at it from like a perspective of joy and love. And
right.
Yeah. So.
No, yeah, it's super great stuff. I think I'm excited about this idea. It's like we're finally figuring out some things about how we need to run society with our technology, with the way we conduct ourselves. There's just so much like reset going on, and hopefully that's the unintended benefit of what's happening right now. Is that a lot more people are going to get back to those kinds of things and building each other up. I mean, I've always felt that our communities here anyway in Canada quite often we're just getting more and more separate from each other. We're not interacting with our neighbors. We're not, we're hiding in our houses doing all our stuff on technology. And now we're hiding in our houses, but we're connecting with others on technology and we're like craving it.
It's funny you said that, like, I was just talking to one of my friends back home and she was describing how, the fast-paced world before, like, everyone went to the grocery store, didn't want to talk to a single soul. They were moving super fast. It's like on to the next destination. She's like, no one has anywhere to go. And all those extroverts that are like craving for communication and interaction. So she's like, even though we need to be social distancing in the grocery store, she's like, I've never had so many conversations with like strangers because they actually are wanting to communicate and have social like interactions, present ones, not on just online, but it's like, she's like, I have never seen that. And she lives in Mississauga, which is like outside of Toronto, and very, very, just fast paced, and no one really seems to have that big sense of community. And she's like, it was just such an odd experience. She's like, I took a moment and was like, cause she's like, I was like, doing my thing, like going to the grocery store, not thinking about it. And then she's like, I literally stopped and was like, I've had like 4 conversations and I've never had that in a grocery store. Like, what is happening? But she's like, took a moment to appreciate that as well.
I honestly, sometimes I'll see people walk past my house out front and I just want to open the door and just ask how they're doing. that's seriously like I haven't done it yet, but cause I'm sure people here would think I'm crazy, but it's just like, oh, I just need to talk to somebody I don't know or and see them in reality.
Yeah. And it's not just like, how are you doing? It's like, what's going on? Because we're so used to, how are you? Good. And then that's it, right? Good. You? Good. Okay. Move on. Like, not even, it's like, if you were to go and open your door and be like, how's it going with coronavirus? Like, what, like, where are you?
Like, how are you actually doing?
Yeah. And I really do believe people would actually engage in that type of conversation at the moment, because it's such a, as much as it's like separating us, it's bringing us so much closer in such a weird, strange way.
Yeah. Well, and sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I cut you off. No, I was just like, how is everybody in the world going to do the same thing?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's so, when has that ever happened? Like, it's just,
I'd say not at this level for sure.
No.
I mean, there's been, big wars and things like that, but just the way we go through this, we're all fighting the same enemy really at this point, right? We're all fighting the same virus.
Yeah. But even with wars, it was not every country was involved.
Exactly.
In war,
exactly.
Right. So obviously it like affected everybody. But like, this is like, you can actually, like when you say, like wanting to like talk to somebody that's walking by, it's like, yeah, that's how we connect with, because we are going through all the same things. So it's not like I'm good, but it's like, no, how are you? Because I totally understand, and I've been through it, and I'm going through it as well. So we all have this like worldwide bond.
Yeah, no, it's unprecedented, and because we have the ability to connect with each other like this through technology. I mean, I'm talking to you on the other side of the world. We can really cope together too at the same time, and that's never happened in history either with the way we're all connected. So technology has provided a lot of very necessary avenues to deal with this.
Absolutely. Grateful for those things for sure.
Well, I don't want to keep you here all day. I do have a couple more things I want to ask. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I could probably keep going for a long time. But I have, like you said, we're both busy, even though there's a pandemic going on. So I have a job to get to as well. One of the things I wanted to ask a little bit about is What do you have any messages that you would give to yourself in the future, or anybody, or any kind of thing that you think that would get us through this? Something you can look back on later and go, oh yeah, I remember that.
Well, I have mine because I've been wanting to kind of say it. So you can think of yours if you have one. But mine is really like, I know that it is a fearful time, and I know that it is a doubtful time. And I feel as though people are losing their persona in a way of like, their attachments to the material world and, but I think it's a time to reconnect. It's a time to start trusting. It's a time to live present. It's a time to not, plan for the future because we don't actually know what will happen. So find security from within yourself. Trust that this will be, there is a light. There is always a light, on the other side of a dark tunnel. So follow that light as much as you possibly can and just trust that everything will work itself out. That is something I have known and said to myself my whole life, is that everything always works out. And you have to trust that all of this is for the greater good, for the better. And I guess that's what I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the message I would give.
How about yourself, Jami? You got anything to add?
Pretty spot on. We're always we spent enough time with each other that we kind of speak each other's minds.
You're in sync, yeah.
But yeah, it's just really that trusting and especially with I think knowing that I don't know, it's like so deep, but yeah, it's just like really just surrender, when we're fearful, and it's like, I really do believe that, the universe will take care of us and yeah. So,
trust. I trust that you have your friends and your family. If you're going through some sort of crisis of like fear, if you've lost your jobs, you feel as though you won't be able to make certain payments, trust that you have built such a strong community, whether it's friends or family, that if in a time of crisis that they would have you, and that, pride sometimes needs to be stepped aside to be able to come together and trust that, you're not going to run out of anything. And one of the big perspectives, I'm getting chills thinking about this, is that, these, just to put it into perspective of like, these communities here really did, probably send out a huge cry to the universe of like, we don't want to run out of food, and God or universe, whatever you believe in, and like, please come and like supply for us. And I do believe that we were part of that call for them. And I do believe that if everyone takes a moment and just like prays for themselves and remove that judgment behind any of the praying, it's more so just like being grateful and thanking and trusting that you're never going to run out, because you are open to receiving love and from any way that it'll come. And so I do believe that, these families from outside of Huanchaco who really, just like, I don't want to run out of food, God, please, please help us. And we somehow heard that calling and we were that, so I do believe that everyone here is supported, and there's so much wealth in Canada that those who are in Canada, again, like, trust that you're either your government will show up for you, your friends will show up for you, your family will show up for you. You will not be left with nothing.
Right. Well, and thanks to people like yourselves around the world taking initiatives like you are too, right? We need people to step up right now. We really do. It doesn't really matter who those people are, but we just need people to step up and help each other. So thank you so much for doing that, especially down in South America. I mean, my heart is very, very connected to that place. So, tell me about how we can help. I guess you just said all that. So yeah, plug your stuff. How do we send money? What can we do to get involved or to help out?
Yeah. So this is like a huge call, and we're not it's not a company that has started this. So again, like, this is a call of like trust. And we started this based on trust. We started like, the people who know us know that we wanted to do some good. So really, Canadians are currently e-transferring me to my email address. Americans, I do have a Venmo account, so they do send money to a Venmo. Then we have in Europe a GoFundMe page that people, Europeans are sending money to. We have a PayPal account as well. We do have someone who is also in Australia who is accepting funds. I don't know what the terminology is like, as to whatever system that the Australians do within each other to transfer money, kind of like a Venmo or something. But we are accepting funds like that. So again, it is odd in that we're we haven't like, and the thing is like with a GoFundMe page, it's good that it was started, but the thing is like it takes time to fill it and it takes time to withdraw. And so we needed an initiative that really brought money in day to day.
Right.
So we could sustain this continuously, and we weren't waiting for a larger, funding in like 2 weeks, because by then it would be too late. Does that make sense? So,
oh yeah, I can relate to that as a social worker, because I have worked with red tape a lot, and quite often you can't get it quick enough to people, right? So that makes total sense.
And we just were like, we need to get it out quick, which was nice to be able to skirt around things, to really get that food in there as soon as we could. We're also doing a fundraiser with a wonderful Canadian named Henry. He is a phenomenal photographer. So right now, if you purchase any of his prints, 100% of the profits are going to us here for food, medicine, for really whatever the communities need. And yeah, you can follow him on his Instagram. It's a Henry story.
He purchases prints. He's sharing it with the world. It's really incredible how many people have like just know us a little bit, know our intentions behind all of this, and like trusting the process of absolutely what we're doing. And he started this, and it's like, it's quite beautiful how much that as well has helped the community. So if anyone is interested in doing something of the sort where, part of their proceeds is
right.
being accepted to do donations, like if anyone has stuff that they're selling or whatever, we're happy to partner in that sense as well. I mean, of course, we want to support anyone throughout this process, artists and whatever you feel called to. But yeah, I think it's awesome that so many people are becoming involved in it. It's really cool.
Yeah. So many different ways to get involved and to give. So I'm super grateful for that. I'm going to put all this stuff down in the show notes. It'll probably be even flashing across the screen a little bit. So I'll have to collect all the proper addresses and everything from you just to make sure I have that. Thanks so much for coming on. This was probably the best interview I've had in terms of, just learning, like there's just so much going on down there, and you two are just doing so many awesome things. Any last things you want to say before we go?
Just like how grateful we are and how humbling at least this experience has been, and like a huge thank you, because we would not be able to do this without all the donations and all the people who heard us and really felt us in this call. So just like, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You're making my show, really, really good today. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I hope we can help in any way we can. So
That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming. Have a good day.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Bye.